What's up, guys? Welcome to my September wrap up. First, let's do some book journaling to update my book journal, all the reads that I read in September, and also all the books that I bought in September. So without further ado, let's get into book journaling together. Into all the books that I read in September and what I'm currently reading. First off, let's start off with our statistics. I read 6 fantasy books this month and 2 Christian nonfiction books. Hey guys, editing Natasha here. So as I'm editing this video, I actually realized I did not include the 2 thrillers I read this month. So I listened to First Light Wins on Audible, and I also listened to Death at Morning House on Audible via Spotify. Because I didn't talk about them, I rated First Light Wins 3 stars. I have like a whole Goodreads review on it, so if you want to follow me on Goodreads, I'll have that link below. But I didn't love it. I thought it was actually really predictable. The way that the thriller went was not really thrilling at all. It was more like a mystery, but it was kind of like, oh, okay, that's the ending, that's how it happened. Boring. And the way that the story went on, it was not plot twisty, it was not really mysterious, it was just kind of more puzzle type of mystery. It was just not my favorite thriller I've ever read. And then I read Death at Morning House. That book was also 3 stars. I didn't love it by any means. I have actually really enjoyed all of Maureen Johnson's work when she did the Truly Devious series with the 2 additional standalones that are interconnected. The new band of characters I thought were kind of stereotypical of like every kind of form of person. Like for example, one is like kind of bratty and edgy, and then the main character is like quirky and weird and awkward, and then the guy was like super popular, everyone loved him, he gets with everybody. They were just super stereotypical of human beings. Like they were the extreme of every kind of human being you could find. That threw me off as well. And the relationships that the main character has with everybody in the group that she's in didn't seem real and didn't seem natural in the book. The main character really didn't have any connection with them, so it was also kind of like stilted the whole time. The only thing that I did enjoy that Maureen Johnson does really well is flashing back into the past. That was the only part that was cohesive, that made sense to me. It wasn't, in my opinion, her best work. So I listened to quite a bit of audiobooks this month. In total, I think it would be 4 audiobooks. But anyways, back to the main video. I read 6 different authors, and I will insert how many pages I read while I'm editing this, because at this moment, I actually do not know, because I'm still in the middle of finishing some books before the month is over. And I bought 10 books this month. Anyways, let's get into what I read first. First off, I read The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. This is a continuation of the Percy Jackson series, introducing a new camp and a new set of characters. It is Greek mythology fantasy. It is very high stakes, very fast paced. This is made for middle grade readers, so it's very easy to read, very easy to understand. The details aren't so intricate that you get all woven up in the scene rather than what's happening. I really liked this book. I love this entire series, honestly. This book I rated 4.75 stars. Then I read The Son of Neptune, which is the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series. This one follows Percy Jackson and the regular band of characters that we find in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. It is so good. It is around the same timeline as the first book, The Lost Hero. All these books are over 500 pages. I'm honestly so shocked that I managed to finish them all within the first half of the month. This book was 4.5 stars. These books are just so good. They're so rich in that they add whatever was lacking in the Percy Jackson series is added into this. There's more action. There's subplots that are woven into the main plot. There's subplots of romance. There's mystery. There's so much more backstory between the gods and between the characters and between the history of the 2 camps that are introduced in the series. It's just so cool. You really get sucked into the story, and I absolutely love that. This is top tier escapism right here. The third book of the series is called The Mark of Athena. I also read this book. This one was 4.75 stars as well. This book follows Annabeth Moore because she obviously is the daughter of Athena, and she is bestowed with this mark, and she has to figure out what the mark means and what it leads her to. And it basically is her own sort of quest. All of these books have cliffhangers at the end, but at the same time, each book has its own quest. 5 books, 5 quests, all trying to move forward to the culmination of one prophecy that you get actually at the end of the Percy Jackson series. The way that Rick Riordan writes is so well done. He weaves everything together so perfectly. There are no loose ends. I just enjoyed myself so much reading these books. These are the perfect fall books to read. The 4th book in this series is The House of Hades. So I remember when I was a kid, I had read The Mark of Athena, and I remember distinctly telling my parents, this series is getting a little dark in the sense that with a book called The House of Hades, you only can think of what happens in Hades. So it is very dark. It's very death heavy. It's very, I'm not going to say sinister, but very like spiritual. So this book definitely took a turn. Nico, which is the son of Hades in the Percy Jackson series, has more of a part to play in this book. And it is getting a little bit dark, but I decided to actually finish this book. It was pretty good. I rated this one 4 stars. As you can see, Percy and Annabeth are on the cover of this book. Their story is absolutely top tier. I was really into this book. What happened at the end of The Mark of Athena really propelled the story forward, propelled the plotline forward. It was really cool. Also, in the previous books, only 3 perspectives were shown. In this book, I believe 5 points of view are written within the story. So that was really cool, and it never ever got confusing. And finally, I read The Blood of Olympus. I actually needed to buy this one because I didn't have it when I was a kid. I have never read this one. The previous 4 books were rereads. This one was all brand new, and it was so good. I really wanted to rate it 5 stars. I think I did rate it 5 stars on Goodreads. I'm pretty sure all these books are either 4 or 5 stars on Goodreads because it doesn't allow the 0.5, 0.75 marker. But this one, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the ending of every story is 5 stars, you know, depending on how the author writes it, of course. But when the author just does a good job at tying all the loose ends, like, you can't help but rate it 5 stars because it was just so good. The story itself was so good. The trajectory of all 5 books were just what they were supposed to be. In terms of this specific book as its own thing, I didn't love how in the previous 4 books, Rick Riordan didn't leave anything ambiguous. So if there was one person's point of view that was somewhere else in the world, in the next point of view, Rick Riordan showed you what the other band of characters were doing in the space in between time zones, and then he would go on with the story following what would happen next. In this book, we have days in between each chapter. We never know what happens. It just gives brief descriptions of what they went through, and then it goes straight into the action of a week after, if what I'm saying even makes sense. In the previous books, he showed us what they were doing the entire time. In this book, we have like pockets of time that we don't know what happened. We don't know how characters got from point A to point B. I really missed that in this book. I wish that he had written even the mundane details, but we didn't get that. It is what it is. I wish it was there, but that's probably my only gripe with this book. If we had every single detail of the timeline between all the characters, it would have been 5 stars. Because we didn't get that, it ended up being 4.75 stars, which is still a phenomenal rating. It was a really great end to the series, and honestly, it made me wish that the series could never end, because at this point, 10 books later, you're so attached to the characters, and at the end of the book, they start talking about their futures together, what they're gonna do, and you just don't want it to end because these characters are like your friends, you know? They're like your own group of friends, so it's really cool. In the beginning of September, I read the Heroes of Olympus series, and this is literally like 1,000, 2,000, basically 2,000 and like 700 pages just in the beginning of September, so I'm very proud of myself, and I'm just really happy that I read it because it was overall a 5-star series for sure. All right, now let's get into the one other fantasy book, really romantic-y book that I read. The next book I read this month is Reckless. This was a hard rating to decipher because I read this a little over a week ago, and I want to say now that it was 4 stars, but when I finished reading it, I was gonna rate it 3 stars, and while I was reading it, I was gonna rate it 2.5 stars. And you guys see my train of thought in the reading vlog, but basically what people have said about this book is true. It is just a filler book. I don't want to say that. I don't want to be mean because I know that Lauren Roberts really put her all into her books. Like, I know that writing a second book after her first debut novel does so well is a daunting task, and I do do believe that she tried her best, because if I were rating this specifically on writing style, it would have been like a 4.75 stars. If I were to annotate this book, it would have been marked up left and right, because her quotes, her metaphors, and her alliterations are so good. They were just so overdone. That's the point of being a good writer, is knowing when and where to place your flowery lyrical writings, your sentences, your phrases, which took it down a notch, a few stars. The fact that not much happened in this book at all, really. The last 100 pages are where it picked up a lot, and that was what made it so good, like so worth it. And that's what makes it now seem 4 stars to me, because the ending was so gripping and so heart-wrenching, and also really sets up the third book pretty well, I would have to say. I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen. I don't know what she's going to do and how she's going to get out of this. She did a good job at keeping me hooked. So that's why right now I would dare to rate it 4 stars. My experience reading it was honestly disappointing and very boring. Like, I found myself wanting to put down this book and like go on my phone or honestly start a new book. Still, Lauren Roberts' writing is one of my favorite. Her writing reminiscent to honestly my own writing. So because of that, I really did enjoy it, even though I did find it a little bit boring. So the rating I'm going to settle on, specifically because of the last 100 pages and how I feel about Lauren Roberts' writing now, is going to be 4 stars. Would I recommend this book? Honestly, if you read books for enjoyment, sure, yeah, I'd recommend it. But if you read books for plotline and you don't feel the need to read books that you think aren't going to add to your life or don't really add to the story, then I would say no, because I really truly feel like you can skip this book and go straight into Fearless. But if you really want to, I would say just read the last 100 pages of Reckless and you will know what's going on. Unfortunately, that was how I felt, but I still love her writing and I love her books, so I'm going to continue reading them. And I'm excited for Fearless coming in 2025. All right, now for the 2 Christian nonfiction books that I read. So first, I read Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. I was actually gifted this book when I was in college, so I've literally had it on my physical TBR for probably like 4 to 5 years now. I listened to this book primarily on audiobook. I thought that it was good for the audience that it's catered to. I think that this could be really helpful if you're someone who doesn't really want to go to therapy, but is considering getting therapy. I think this book is good for Christians who are younger in their faith and who are learning how to deal with the emotional side of their humanity and are looking for ways to heal and grow as a person and let go of trauma, assuming that they even acknowledge that they have trauma. I don't think this is a book for people who are kind of coasting through life, not really paying attention to their mind or their heart posture, but I do think that this book is good for, like I said, the intended audience. For me, I rated it 4 stars because I could see how it could help other people, but I did not appreciate some of the things that the author wrote about the people in scripture. I didn't really appreciate how he went about addressing certain topics. I would have done it differently. Nonetheless, the concept of this book was good. In terms of recommending it, I think that this would only be appropriate for certain groups. So do with that what you will. If you want, you can read the synopsis, but it's essentially about being emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, and spiritually healthy all in one, and how you can't have one health without the other. Then I read Knowing God by J.I. Packer. I actually started this book 2 years ago. I honestly have no recollection of how I even got my hands on this book. Maybe I bought it at Barnes & Noble or something, but I remember when I first started reading it, I was like filled with the Holy Spirit. I was getting revelation after revelation, and I read maybe 130 pages like on my own, and then I started audiobooking it because I was like, I don't want to keep this book on my TBR for any longer than it has to be. It's already been on there for so many years. I want to just finish it. The further the book went on, I feel like it became something different than what it started off as. Like, this book is about knowing God and knowing God intimately. I know him as if he was my best friend standing next to me. I feel like because in my walk with God, I have grown so much and my relationship with God has also become so much more intimate. I feel that the timing of this book for me to listen to it kind of has passed, in the sense that now I can say that I know God. So listening to this book, I noticed some things that the wording of it maybe could have been a little bit different and also maybe a little bit gentler. At the end of each chapter, it was like a question, like, what are you going to do about this? Or this is how we should be living our lives. Or how does this change your perception about God? How does this change your priorities in life? Things like that. And at this point in my relationship with God, I don't really need questions like that. So I thought it was good. I think that people could learn from this, but I also think that they should read it with the Spirit and also test the things in this book, test what it says. What I did appreciate is that it quotes a lot of scripture. It has a lot of theology woven into to its writing. There's a lot of poems and hymns praising the Lord in this book, which is great. If you want to try it out, that's up to you. I'm not going to straight up say, yeah, you definitely should read this book. When I first was reading it, I was going to rate it 5 stars, but now it's kind of staying at the 3-star mark just because of what I felt in my spirit while reading it. It was still a very interesting read. Those are the 2 Christian books that I read this month. Now let's get into what I'm currently reading. All right, so I am currently reading 1 Christian book and 1, I want to say, fantasy, magical realism, mystery kind of book. So let's get into the Christian one first. I am reading The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. This is a Christian fiction book. I am listening to it on Audible, but also underlining it, so like reading it while I'm listening to it. This is a book that I would not suggest going in blind. I know a lot of us readers like to go into books not knowing anything so that it's a surprise and it's more of an experience and there's no like preconceived notions that can ruin the reading experience. But this one I really will have to tell you because it's not your normal Christian fiction. I've actually never read anything like this, so I would like to preface it because it can be a little bit dangerous if you don't know what you're getting into. This book is about 2 demons writing letters to each other. The uncle demon is called Screwtape, and he's writing letters to his nephew called Wormwood. The uncle demon is basically trying to coach his nephew on how to take the soul of this person. So if you go into it thinking it's going to be a Christian fiction where people, you know, are talking to each other and there's characters and you're going to learn more about Jesus, you are going to learn more about God, but you have to get used to the lingo. So the demons obviously call God the enemy. And the reason why C.S. Lewis wrote this book is so that Christians could be, I guess, aware of the workings of the enemy and his demons, like the real enemy and his demons, and also learn more about God and what the enemy knows about God. Because I feel like a lot of people don't know that obviously, like, since there is God, there is the enemy, and the enemy knows the Bible and knows God better than a lot of people do. So it's important to know like the true God, the true Jesus that we serve. C.S. Lewis even prefaces in the beginning of this book, it really doesn't matter. Like, we shouldn't give our attention to the enemy or how he works or his demons. You know, we should be paying attention more to God, which is basically what I'm doing while reading this book. This book talks about how the Lord actually truly loves all of his children and how he truly longs for all of them to be saved. God will always sprinkle things in your life to point to him. There is Jesus in this book, but like I said, the main character are these demons. So that's why I wanted to preface, if you do want to read this book, it's not like, you know, this is who Jesus is and this is what he does, you know, all these characters, whatever. You have to read it with the right mindset. So I'm listening to this book on Audible. I am 81 pages in, so a little bit under halfway, maybe like 38% in. And then I am still reading my book club pick for September, and that is The Night Circus. This book is so enchanting, so charming, so interesting and intricate and magical. The summary of this book literally does not do it justice. Like, it is so cool. I heard people say that this book is slow. For me, I've been interested this entire time. Never once have I been bored. Never once have I been like, wow, I don't want to read this. It is so cool. It does follow a circus that only opens at midnight, but the amount of characters that this author weaves into the story, and when I say weaves, I mean literally weaves. Every chapter is its own thread, and at the end of the book, I am convinced we're gonna get a whole tapestry of how all these seemingly miscellaneous characters with miscellaneous stories are going to intertwine into one amazing plot that you didn't even know you were following. It does have a competitive element. There is a competition, but you don't really know what's happening. Like, you know there's a competition happening, but you don't know, not even the characters know, who's gonna win, who the opponents are, and what's the point of the competition. So I am 242 pages in. I still don't know what's the point of the competition. We now know who the competitors are, but let me tell you guys, there's a lot going on. It's so beautifully written. I have never read writing the way that this author does, Erin Morgenstern. It's so beautiful. She also does alliterations, kind of like Lauren Roberts, but they're timed perfectly. And the way that she writes is so elegant. Like, there's so much poise to her writing. Like, if you can picture somebody's writing as somebody with a straight back and elegantly dressed and just perfect table manners, that literally would be her writing. But I'm really enjoying this book. I'm not sure it's gonna be 5 stars because there are elements in this book that I really actually like avoid completely. That's what I'm currently reading at this moment. These 2 books, I am going to finish them. I'm telling myself, by God's grace, I'm gonna finish these books before October 1st. We're gonna grind on that. But without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching. Those are the books that I read this month of September. I would say it was a really fun and good reading month. I was introduced to a bunch of genres that I haven't read before, so it was really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you guys are reading, and I will see you in the next video. And by the way, happy October and happy fall. God bless you guys, and peace.